Alright, so boom. Right. Wall pressure. Let's talk about wall pressure. In this game, Steve's wall pressure is probably around top 5 or something. Somewhere around there. Tekken 8 Steve has probably the best wall pressure out of any version of Steve that I've ever seen. And I'm gonna tell you why. In Tekken 7, when Steve got you to the wall, the initial 50-50 was the stomp into down back 2 or peekaboo down 2, or it was just rocket punch. That was the initial 50-50. Hold on, let me turn counter hit off. That was the initial 50-50. Or you could do the wall push into 30 damage. In this game, the stomp doesn't knock down. Before this recent patch, Steve could not cancel this. He had to either commit to the guard break, he had to commit to Lionheart 1, which doesn't wall splat. Lionheart 1 doesn't wall splat. Or he had to commit to back sway options. Or forward sway options. Because if you land duck 1 at the wall, it's a legit launcher. So Steve's wall pressure, even before this patch, was still insane. But now that you're able to cancel this, he's a completely different monster at the wall now. And here's why. Alright, I'm gonna just jump into it. So I need Jack to not follow me. When your opponent has their back to the wall, the initial 50-50 is rocket punch or the stomp. As long as they're not moving around. If they're moving around, then you can spam up back 2 to keep them in check, to make them not step. You can spam regular grabs. I wouldn't recommend doing that one. I wouldn't recommend doing 1+3 because it moves them away from the wall. But in a situation like this, Steve still has wall pressure because of this throw. He can legit place you back on the wall. And if your opponent is constantly breaking that throw, he still has his sways. You can literally just spam this and they're going back to the wall. So that's the initial 50-50, right? Your opponent is going to be inclined to duck because of this throw and because of the stomp. So that's why this move is so strong at the wall. People think in Tekken 7 Steve's wall pressure was better, but this is why it's not. The rocket punch can now bound. You can bound at the wall now. That's crazy. You can bound at the wall for more damage. So if I do a resplat, combo, I don't think I can do it on Jack. But let's say on big characters. I'm glad Jack is here. Jack is a good guy. He's a good fella. If you eat this combo, that's 69 damage. And let me show you something when they don't tech roll. A lot of people don't know about this. If you're fighting against a massive giant character like the Bears or Jack, soon to be Marduk, I hope not, and you do this combo and they don't tech roll, that's guaranteed. That is all guaranteed. I'm gonna do it again so you know what to look at. Hold on. That's half-life from rocket punch at the wall if they duck. Obviously this doesn't work on any other giant character or any other character that isn't Jack or the Bears, but you get the point. On the regular little people, you still get really good damage. So that's why your opponent doesn't want to duck. And if your opponent is committed to not ducking, with this recent patch, this is a legit mix-up now. The stomp is +4. You can just spam the stomp over and over. Make them duck. Make them duck. You know what? Let me not have him block everything. I do this all the time. Because they're going to be so scared to duck. So that's the new version of this 50-50. It used to just be a giant decision tree. And what a decision tree is you're in a 50-50 right now. If you guess wrong, you're going to be put into another 50-50. If you guess wrong, you're going to be put into another 50-50. Because the guard break is a 50-50 in itself. I could do the 2-2 option, or I could do a mid. The mid isn't guaranteed, but it's not a bad option considering I could do the guard break into another stomp and put you back in that same decision tree. So it's an insane mind game that it used to be, and still is, because you can still do this. You don't have to cancel Lionheart. After you land the mid, let's say, after you land the mid, Rocket Punch is a heat engager. So let's say I do this combo. Hold on. Let's say I do this combo, right? And they tech roll. They're now put into another decision tree because I can run up and stomp because they can't get away. You can't move after you tech roll like immediately. I could either run up and stomp. Oh my goodness. If they try to duck, I can do running 2. And that's just a 50-50 in itself. If they don't have an idea of what to do, Steve's down for 3+4 in heat is a really, really strong option. Because now they're waking up into another 50-50. If they don't duck, they're susceptible to being clinched, which is another guess. Or I could do the forward 2 option into frames, and if they do duck, they can get hit with this, or they can get hit with this, and this knocks down into like what, 40 damage? What is it, 40 damage? About 40 damage if you want to be optimal. You can do running 2, but it's kind of hard to react to. So that's just if the mid lands and you connect the mid. Let's say you're in a situation like this where you and your opponent are right next to a wall. This is still insane wall pressure for Steve. And it's all thanks to this throw. It's all thanks to this throw. Because this throw guarantees a wall splatting move. Hold on. This throw guarantees Peekaboo forward 1+2. Aside from a situation like this, it's not gonna land. Like, that's not a combo. But with your left shoulder or your right shoulder to the wall, anytime you do a side push where you push them to the side like this, Peekaboo forward 1+2 is always guaranteed because you have at least 14 frames to work with. And this move is 12 frames. That is ridiculously scary because, once again, why is this not... Can you come here? Thank you. Jack, please, work with me. This is extremely scary because if you get wall splatted, you're back in the same situation you were just in, except you don't have heat. So you're either gonna run up and running 2 into +6, or you're gonna run up into a stomp into another fucking decision tree. It's extremely complicated, but with enough time and practice, you'll be able to understand what your opponent's tendencies are after certain situations. A lot of people think don't duck Steve, only duck the highs. It kind of is good advice out in the open, but at the wall, you're constantly guessing. And even though this is only 20 damage, it's the mental damage that the stomp does. Because you could either go into Lionheart and do whatever Lionheart option, or you could just stand there like a menace and you're back to neutral. You're back to neutral. You don't have to do anything. A lot of people like to dig jab. So if they try to dig jab, I'm actually just gonna, if they try to dig jab, sway 1-1, and you're back on the wall, and you're back in that you're back in that mix up. So in my opinion, this version of Steve has the best wall pressure out of any version of Steve that I've ever gotten to experience. Another mix-up that you can do is to really scare the shit out of your opponent. I used to do this a lot in Tekken 7 before they nerfed Alp 2, because in my last guide, in my neutral guide, I said that Steve's rocket punch tracks to his left. It tracks to Steve's left, and Alp 2 tracked to Steve's right in Tekken 7. But they nerfed it, so now this doesn't track anywhere. So if your opponent is constantly moving, a lot of times you'll see me just spam up back 2. I'll spam down forward 1 and I'll spam up back 2 so they don't move, and then I'll back away, making them think that, okay, now is my time to move, and then I catch them with this. Even all the way over here, Steve is still fucking scary. You can try to move, but I'm just gonna run up. I'm just gonna run up and up back 2. And this is just without heat. This is without heat. So now, when this fucker is in heat, this is some of the scariest shit that you're gonna see in this game, because from all the way over here, you're in another 50-50, because this wall splats if they duck, and this is homing. The Gatling punches are completely homing. You can try to step, but they realign with you, so you're not going anywhere. And in case you do go somewhere, the clinch is also homing. You can see the trail around it. So if Steve is in heat, you don't want to step him because of these options. But here's the gamble. Here's the gamble that you and your opponent take. If your opponent doesn't break the 1 option, he dies. He just dies. Yes, on Jack and big characters, that is guaranteed. On smaller characters, that's 92 damage into another 50-50, if you still have heat left, obviously. And yeah, this Steve is by no means weak anymore. Before the first set of buffs that Steve got, I think Steve was the worst character in the game by a mile, because whether they blocked the stomp or not, they could power crush through this. They could power crush through that. That was such a terrible time, and I don't ever want to go back. I don't know how we as a community made it past the first like 2 months of Tekken 8. But anyway, now that Steve is better, the options are almost endless. The options are almost completely endless. And on a stage like this, like on a really small stage, if you land this, he's gonna get another wall, and he's gonna threaten you with this throw again, whether your back is to the wall or not. If Steve's back is to the wall, Steve has wall pressure. Because let's say you're playing Jin, right? Let's say you're playing Jin, and Jin does his standing forward to stop you from stepping. If Steve back sways that, hold on, come here, Jack. If Steve back sways Jin standing forward, that's 106 damage with no heat utility used. That's just without heat. Now, this used to be a lot scarier at Wall Blast, like on Midnight Siege and what's that stage? The hangar, Rebel Hangar on the second floor. This used to be a lot scarier because the damage scaling wasn't as bad as it is now. So you would get like 130 plus damage just from back two in the Peekaboo 4 1+2. The level of a menace to society. This is why I have Steve rocking the shiesty in this video, because he's a threat and a menace to every human that's in front of him. He's just a savage at the wall. He's a savage. The only character that, off the top of my head, I haven't looked at everyone else's wall pressure yet, but the only character that has some competition into having better wall pressure with Steve is Brian, and it's because he has the taunt, and the taunt just isn't. It's not fun, especially because it got buffed, so there's no scaling on it now. So everything you eat after the taunt is full damage, as if you held forward. Oh, I didn't talk about the second option. The second option that you and your opponent are gambling with, not the heat smash. Although the heat smash is a really good option, because if they block it, wait, if they block it, you're at +8. You're at +8 into Lionheart. You're in the same Lionheart mix-up that you're constantly putting your opponent in. Or if your opponent is in rage and you want your mix-up and you don't want to get hit with a rage art, you can cancel Lionheart after his heat smash. Now it's -9, but it's safe. Like you're completely safe from anything. You don't have to risk anything anymore. You don't have to risk, if your opponent's in rage and they try to rage art, you don't have to risk doing a damn near frame perfect duck cancel into a block to block the rage art anymore. That is massive, because I've dropped that shit so many times. And now that I don't have to do it, it's just insane. It's insane. So the other option from the clinch is this option. This isn't good because, yes, you're getting 50 damage, but your opponent is now completely away from the wall. So that's not, you know what I mean, that's not optimal. So I wouldn't recommend going for the clinch 50-50 unless your opponent is like gonna die from it, like they have less than 50 health. But yeah, just have a field day with Steve's wall pressure. This is -31, so if they do block the stomp, you're gonna die. Unfortunately, you're just dead. But you don't even have to do the stomp, really. You don't have to do the stomp. because you can go into Peekaboo, and Peekaboo down 1 is fucking homing. Peekaboo standing 2 is fucking homing. Peekaboo down 4 1 2, it's plus 18 at the wall. Yes, it's mid-high, so they can duck it, but this is plus 1 if they eat the second hit, and if you get a read on when your opponent's gonna press, and you do Peekaboo back 2, it wall splats. This isn't the best move. This obviously isn't the best move. It's minus 13. Peekaboo forward 2 wall splats. It's a flat out launcher at the wall. This is also really strong. So you use Peekaboo 2 to stop them from stepping and from jabbing. The only way they get out of it is if they do like a high crushing move, like a dig jab or something. And if you want to use flicker at the wall, his counter hit flicker strings are again even more buffed, because this wall splats, and this is guaranteed. Flicker 1 into Alp 2, it's hit confirmable. It's counter hit confirmable. This is also counter hit confirmable. Look at how much time you have to do this. This, like, it's a combo. So these two options are extremely strong. And you could do 1 flicker jab into a power crush, and the power crush wall splats. You could cancel Peekaboo and flicker into your back sway options. Obviously in a hard read situation. I don't know why you would do this, but flicker 1 2 wall splats as well. It does the same damage as flicker 1 down 1, or no, it does the same damage as flicker out 2. And if your opponent ever decides, you know what, I'm sick of this shit, and you play the spacing game with them, and they whiff something, they are better off putting their controller down, shaking your hand, and walking away. Because back 2 is unbelievable. When I watched Steve's trailer, when I watched Steve's Tekken 8 trailer, and I saw that back 2 didn't launch anymore, I was like, oh yeah, Steve's dead. He's done. He can't launch anyone. There's no reason to play him. But seeing that it's plus 14 and it guarantees Peekaboo 4 1 plus 2, this completely changed him at the wall, even more so on top of everything that I already said. Now, this is kind of tricky to do, but one thing my good friend Bolo and Z taught me is when you see the hit spark effect on back 2 go away, it's not like it's just a visual cue. So when you see it, the second you see it go away, that's when you input it. It's still kind of hard to do, but it does help a little bit seeing when the right time to press is. So if your opponent whiffs something, that's 99 damage, and that's not even the optimal wall combo, because I didn't resplat, I didn't do Peekaboo 1 2 or flicker 1 2 to bound. Steve's damage at the wall is completely fucking insane. And to top it all off, the last thing that I'm going to talk about, which I will be doing a separate video on, is Steve's chip damage when he's in heat. Steve's chip damage when he's in heat is really good. Obviously, there are a lot of holes, there are a lot of highs, there are a lot of steppable moves in there that they can't just dig jab to get out of. But still, they're going to be so scared of pressing because of this move. And because of this move, And plus, you're still threatening with your counter hit. You're still threatening with back one. And they're not going to want to move because of this move. And they're not going to want to press again because if this grab counter hits, it's hard to break. So you can't necessarily just mash away when he's in heat, but utilizing his chip damage, it's absurd what Steve can do. The options are endless. The options are endless. So I hope y'all enjoyed this video, and there will be more to come. I think my next video is either gonna be Steve's chip damage, or maybe some combos, maybe some combo routes. But I hope you enjoyed. I appreciate you for watching, and until next time.